Welcome back, Hex Tribe. We've got a very special guest today. You might have heard of him. His name is Furu Finance, and we're going to talk all about Furus and Hex and drama, everything going on, and why do people hate Hex so much? Why do they want to see it fail so badly? And what's going on? There's all kinds of drama, right? Never a dull moment in the land of crypto and the land of Hexico. So, you've got billionaires arguing with each other online, Hoskinson and Richard. Alleged billionaires, maybe millionaires. You've got drama from all the haters as usual. I just saw a guy, Bob Lucas, today, famous Bitcoin guy, took a jab at Hex because why not, right? That seems like the trendy thing to do. It's the mainstream thing is to hate Hex and call it a scam. But a lot of these people, when they're talking about it, they have no idea what it really is. They might have done a couple minutes of research and that's all they're ever going to do. And then they just double down on their opinion. Because it's kind of trendy, right? And then the people that end up really in Hex are the people that took the time to learn. And so, welcome, Furu Finance. Thanks for coming on my channel. And why do you think people hate Hex so much?
Thank you so much for having me. And that is, I guess, a little bit of a complex question. I think the bare bones reason would be I think it's something new. It's tech. When something new comes into the world, I think people have their suspicions and false allegations, especially when it's like life-changing technology. So I like the example that John McAfee really gave when he talked about when he was actually talking about Monero and how he was a big fan of that. And I happen to like Monero, but he was saying the reason why. Yeah, he was saying the reason why people were hostile to it, why people thought Bitcoin was better is because it was new, it was insurgent. And he gave the example of the telephone, how people said it was only for the mafia and the automobile was only for bank robbers. And then you had Bitcoin, when that was the new thing, everyone said it was some scammy internet money. And
it's only for drugs, right? It's only for the Silk Road.
Yeah. And it was something misunderstood. And if you really have the wherewithal and the mental acuity, the ability to really discern do your research and to figure out what gives something its value and the technology behind something, you can learn that it in fact is not a scam. I mean, I think it's very easy to look at 38% APY and say scam, especially considering like Celsius and BlockFi were giving you 10 to 12, right? And those were scams. So you look at a 38% APY and I'm saying this is someone who came from Celsius, and you just say, oh, yeah, wait, what do you mean? But if you understand blockchain, you understand smart contracts, you understand trustless, interaction with the tech, and things like that, and maybe a little bit of economics, you could really understand that this is big. This is something that's very life-changing. So
yeah, it's just a piece of code. It's immutable code on an immutable blockchain, and I think at the end of the day, people just hate Richard. That's a lot of it, dude. They just don't like his flashy attitude. And why is that, right? Why is it so distasteful to people to see those displays of wealth? You got to wonder. It really does make you think internally about why does that trigger people so much? I mean, I find it humorous, entertaining, and judging by the numbers only, the numbers on his accounts have blown up in the bear market, tripled his follower count. Even if half the people hate him and half the people love him, it's a slice of a bigger pie, right? We want the bigger pie. So that's where he's coming from on that, of just trying to do these flashy displays of wealth. I mean, he's just trying to get attention any way he can. So, but why do people hate that so much? It's really interesting. It's like maybe it has to do with an insecurity about themselves and being afraid of, or insecure maybe that they're not wealthy or they don't have the ability to do that. I mean, we see a lot of virtue signaling in society that's anti-wealthy, right? It's like being rich is bad, right? You're evil or whatever. I've never thought that at all. I look at money in a totally different way. Money is just energy and power, and that power allows you to lead your ideas into the world and disseminate your ideas and shape the world how you want it to be. And you can lead out of fear or you can lead out of love. And I think a lot of people that aren't sociopaths, which is most people, that when they have large sums of money, they actually try to make the world a better place. I mean, But then power corrupts as well, right? So you can say, well, now America is basically an oligarchy of different monopolies and various verticals. I've got a good picture for this though. So this is what you were saying through finance. Basically, this is how everybody thinks, guys. Look on the screen. When you were still early for Bitcoin, when there was life-changing wealth on the table, everybody and their mother called it a scam. Same thing with every Bitcoiner in 2014 when Ethereum launched. And some of them are still clinging on to that. I mean, guys, there's Bitcoin maximalists out there that still think Ethereum is a scam. So get ready for at least 8 to 10 more years of hatred from some sector of the population. And it's going to be, it's uncomfortable, right? I've got a Gandhi quote on my thumbnail, and it's first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And we got past the ignore you and laugh at you pretty quickly. We almost skipped them. We went right to the fight you part. And that's where we're going to be for a while, not only in HEX, but in cryptocurrency in general. You know what I mean? Like, how are you looking at all this in terms of, FTX is collapsing. A lot of people have negative sentiment towards crypto as a whole. And a lot of people are talking about trying to take shots at HEX when it's the only thing that hasn't failed, when Celsius, Voyager, everything else has failed. So what's your perspective on this fight that we are a part of?
Yeah, that's some great points that you're making. Definitely in terms of the next 8 to 10 years being called a scam. Listen, if we could have the price performance that I think we could have, and that Bitcoin and Ethereum had, I'm down for all I'm down for all that. In terms of like all these things like BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager, all those lending platforms. There's Salt Lending. There's all those things. I see that is the market. That is the target market for HEX. I think that is the best community still on board. That's where I came from. I actually came from Celsius. People want to chase yield.
But that's how you got into HEX.
Yeah. So I actually saw. It was in the beginning, and I saw Mashinsky on Kitco News. I was one of those watchers of Kitco News. It's a good channel, but it's always the world is ending, and But so I saw Mashinsky, and I looked into Celsius, and the other thing that was its competitor, there were a lot of charts next to each other, side by side, was with HEX. And I searched HEX, and I saw basically, I was I wasn't new to crypto. I was new to really being in crypto. I was in XRP, because a friend got me in there, or whatever. But so I saw HEX side by side, and I looked up HEX, and everyone was calling it a scam. So I'm like, okay, let me stay away from this. And Mashinsky, he's on the television. He's got his AMAs every Friday. He's got charisma, honesty, integrity. Let me stick with the Celsians.
What could possibly go wrong, right?
What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? And then it obviously did go wrong. But I actually got out of Celsius. A lot of it was because of that video. It was because of that video that Richard said. So I already started watching Richard. And I got into other cryptocurrencies. I had some winnings. I put it into USDC and Celsius, and then I took it out and I bought HEX because I thought it would be decorrelated and continue making all-time highs in the bear market in the bear market, because when Bitcoin was down over 50%, HEX was making all-time highs. So I thought decorrelation, and like you said, it's picking up pennies in front of freight trains. So I did buy at high prices, but I still have those T shares. I still have my HEX, as opposed to being in Celsius and
you could have lost everything.
Yeah. And what really bothers me? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What really bothers me is you have these people like myself who are still in that Celsius, middleman state of mind, and this is the answer, right? This is the answer where you can earn yield, and you can do it without giving your keys up, and you could earn a higher APY, a higher percentage per year. And then and the problem is you have these people like Simon Dixon, who he's a TradFi kind of person. He grew up in his career was in traditional finance, and he got into Bitcoin early. But all his companies that he's investing in are Bitfinex, Tether. It was just all these middlemen middlemen companies like centralized exchanges and things like that. I think Ripple, all those things, and basically everyone in Celsius is turning towards him. Like he's trying to figure out like a way to, have more integrity and more honesty in this industry of yield chasing, whatever. And I remember he used that clout he got from all these Celsians and people in Voyager, and he turned them towards salt lending, which just about a week or two ago went bankrupt. And it's like, why do people like this
Mashinsky
person?
Did that?
What?
Mashinsky did that?
No. Simon Dixon.
Oh, Simon Dixon. Yeah.
Simon Dixon. Smart guy, nice guy, but he's got the wrong idea. And it's like
some people just can't get out of that paradigm of centralized companies. Like when I talk to my parents, for example, they always think I'm like part of like a company. They don't really think it's like a decentralized organic movement that's happening, or at least real cryptos are real DeFi. There's no middleman. There's no company full of people that's processing all your transactions or anything like that. It's just code. And we're just like fans of different pieces of code on the internet, like different sports teams, right? But some of those guys, I think, they're so entrenched in that traditional world that they can't break out of the concept of companies. Like to them, crypto is a new sector, it's a new industry, but the real winners in crypto aren't actually companies at all. It's people that buy and hold long-term cryptocurrencies, and it's like a gradual wealth transfer. I mean, they call it the greatest wealth transfer in human history, but it's happening over a multi-year timescale. And the people that recognize that now, I think, are very financially rewarded. So I'm glad. I mean, I've never actually heard anybody with your story that came from Celsius and to HEX that way. So that's pretty interesting. I remember back in the day they tried to collaborate with HEX and Hexikins a little bit, or, I looked at it more as like trying to leech off of our community. You know what I mean? Because they were like how, like when HEX did the 24-hour live stream, they were very in awe at our community. I remember when everything was first starting in like 2020, and they tried to copy our community, but there's absolutely no way they could have done that. I mean, they even poached like one of this female YouTuber who's great. She's still, a Hexican at heart and like all that stuff. But I remember they just poached her and basically started paying her to go do Celsius content. And she's just a young girl, wants a job in crypto.
Oh, they were paying her?
Well, I don't know.
I did not know that.
I don't want to
hurts.
speak.
That hurts.
Well, at one point, all I know is that she changed her title to like community manager or community, some kind of community leader or something.
Okay.
And then, I mean, she's since bounced around to different projects, and everyone's got to make a living in this space, right? But I just found it funny that they tried to copy our community base. That's all I'm trying to say is that when Hexologist did 24-hour live stream, Mashinsky then did another 24-hour live stream himself. He just copy and pasted the 24-hour live stream idea, but it wasn't nearly as fun. It wasn't nearly as like energetic,
Not organic.
And it's not organic. Yeah, it all felt kind of forced. And it was all, Celsius was funny too, because they were selling shirts saying like, fuck the banks and all that stuff. It's like, bro, you guys are basically another bank. Like, how ironic is this? Like Mashinsky is trying to be so pro crypto, but just so obviously not about it. Real crypto, that is. So, and it's easy to crap on him now. I actually bought Celsius at one point and I sold it. I think I bought it at $5 and I sold it at $7 because something just didn't feel right with it, and it wasn't making the gains that Hex was making. So I had like a tiny bag of sell that I dumped, luckily for a profit, right? But if I held it any longer, it could have gone to zero.
Yeah.
Whatever it's at now, it's still being traded, which is the crazy thing to me.
Yeah, they have that sell short squeeze thing on Bitfinex. I think maybe a lot of the reason why it's not at zero is because it's locked up. People can't get it out. That could be part. That could be part of it. But it's interesting.
How is it not? I have no idea. How is it still trading if the company is bankrupt? Like it just goes to show you, people will trade anything with a ticker symbol.
It's true.
Anything at all.
Yeah, it got very, very oversold also. So I guess it's reflexive. Yeah. So like it went down to like under 15 cents from $8.
Yeah.
So you could say maybe that's part of it, but yeah, I think it's the liquidity being tied up. It's being like tied up in like Celsius and stuff like that because they're not allowing withdrawals. I'm sure, like, imagine they'd let people withdraw, it'd probably go to zero in a second. So I think it's a combination of like a bunch of things. And then also, like, it's just trading on an exchange, so there's liquidity pools.
Yeah, exactly. So for the people that don't know you guys, Through Finance here, you're a relatively newer YouTuber, right? When did you start your channel, and why did you start talking about HEX? And I know you don't only cover HEX, but why did you start getting your face out there and talking in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually talked about this on it was Matty Allen's birthday HEX birthday stream. So yeah, I mean, I do cover broader crypto news, but in terms of like the cryptos that I hold, so I sacrifice for PulseX and I buy HEX regularly and things like that. I don't really cover other cryptos outside the RH space, but the reason why is because it's just, to me, it's just such a no-brainer in terms of like the metrics of what, like, crypto is a very risky industry, and 99.9% of them aren't going to make it. You just look at 2018, you look at all those cryptos that have these crazy run-ups. Most of them didn't come back. Most of them did not make a new all-time high, right? There's maybe five or six. I think it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, Monero, Cardano, BNB. That's it. And there were hundreds. So what really makes a crypto, succeed? I think there's a few metrics. I think number one's the community. I guess game theory. There has to be founder benevolency to an extent. I mean, there's no expectations, but can't be a rug pull. And I think a lot of people think like company. A lot of people think like a company's good if there's a company behind it. It's actually not good because that companies need to raise money. So
it makes sense. Yeah, you gotta pay for those guys' lunches every day.
Yeah. Salaries, lunches, retreats, all those things. So I mean, ultimately, community is the number one metric because community is what gives it consensus of value, right? And I give the example of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like, people pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for Yu-Gi-Oh cards because they like Yu-Gi-Oh, and I mean that's really what it comes down to. There has to be a community that values it, and things like that. And like, okay, so community is good while the cryptos having in the bull market. Everyone's getting rich. Like, I remember wherever I put money, I was doubling, quadrupling easily, during those 2 years. But the problem is when bear market enters, not so simple. Price goes down. Why would people stay, right? And HEX really closes that, as Richard says, the negative externality, right? And with the time locking. So community is sort of baked into the cake. It's in the code. To me, that makes it a no-brainer. I mean, what?
It's weird that the way community is baked into the code, because all the people that wanted to dump when they were scared, I think we've seen that in HEX, most of the people that wanted to sell their big bags have already sold. And so that leaves you with all these people that actually believe in it that are locked up. And I just think it's something that you could have never predicted, but it also kind of makes so much sense. Like, when you have like stakers of last resort, like, remember when Bitcoin, Trace Mayer talked about holders of last resort in Bitcoin? Yeah. We've got stakers of last resort, and those guys are like me and you, I'm guessing. That's like holders of last resort on steroids, because we are actually locked in, like, we can't dump, saves yourself from yourself and all that stuff.
So it's good for the price, and it's good for us, because you said earlier about like this big wealth redistribution, but in most cryptos, maybe not so much, because if you're not a wealthy person, so like people have needs, right? So and if you're not wealthy, you need money to really
vicious cycle
to buy to buy the things you need, and that's really the thing I talk about. And like people are going to panic sell. People are going to sell tops. They're going to sell like price appreciation. They're going to sell price depreciation. Out of fear and things like that, because they need it. They want to cash out. They want to buy the Lambo. They want to buy the house. They want to buy the clothing. They want to buy the jewelry. They want to travel the world. But if you're wealthy, you don't need those things. You already have the cash flow. You have dividend stocks, real estate, bonds, all those things. So you're going to be able to hold, and that's why the people. That's why Roger Ver held through Bitcoin the entire time. He already had his like online business or whatever. I mean, but Hex, you really get the opportunity to get to that stage where you have that much money that you don't need to sell because you're forced not to sell. You force yourself not to sell. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, nothing's a given, but it's.
I mean, we always talk about 90% dips are in the game. Bear markets are brutal. They're always worse than you ever thought possible. But then crypto always goes way higher than you ever thought possible. Mm-hmm. It's funny, back in the bull market, everyone's calling for like crazy high price predictions. Bitcoin to 200,000, Hex to $2, and nobody knows when the top is going to be. It could have gone there, but it just happened to pop a little bit earlier. And now that we're at the bottom of the bear market, a lot of the predictions that I see for the next bull market are very, very a lot smaller. You know what I mean? Some people are predicting like lower prices than they did at the peak of the highs. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny, a lot more conservative estimates. And then when we're pumping again, they're going to be back to Moonboy talk, back to all that stuff. AJ Rip City Hex says, "You look like a young Travolta." I think that's a pretty good compliment, sir.
Thank you.
You have a day job, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so YouTube is a hobby right now, but that's cool. So you started the channel just to talk about, like, what inspired you to actually get to start this as a hobby?
It just really, it was basically, I've been in it for like over a year, and I hear people talking about it. I always have my opinions. Hey, maybe put it out there, help shape the conversation. I think you were a part of it. You talked about that. Hexologist talks about that. I think it's just a good thing, if you for people that really think that they have insight that could shape the discourse. I think
it's great to have new speakers that are eloquent and put together well and a little bit smarter. It seems like I really like the quality that Hex has attracted in terms of a lot of the people. Most of the people in here are just seem to be a little bit more clever than average. And like the fact that you were able to find it, it's almost like an IQ test in itself, right? Like you were able to look past, a couple of scam articles online and say, okay, what's really going on here? And it takes a long time, right? It takes a long time for some people. Luckily I was on board just because I had been listening to Richard. Richard basically built his reputation with me with his old videos in 2017 to 2019. Because I was listening to him all the way in the bear market of 2018. And that's where he gained rapport. And so at that point, anything he was going to do, I was going to buy into. He talks about doing, so it's funny, Corey Costa just interviewed Charles Hoskinson. And I know Richard and Hoskinson are beefing a little bit online. But Corey did a great job, as always, nailed it, just knocked it out of the park. And Hoskinson's a smart dude, and he's almost on Richard's level, maybe, but he seems to maybe not have the marketing knowledge and expertise that Richard has. But I mean, they both know a lot about a lot of shit, basically. And Corey knows a ton about history. I was surprised Hoskinson knew and was able to go back and forth with him on that. But where was I going with this? I had a point. Hoskinson, he talked about privacy, right? He really values privacy. He talked about private smart contracts. And that's a legitimate idea that I think is very good. I think these are things that Richard would have a lot to comment on as well. Like private smart contracts was one. He also talked about doing useful proof of work. And I found that funny because when he brought up useful proof of work, I was like, well, Richard almost did that with his CFD token. Before he was going to make Hex, he was going to make computational fluid dynamics token, which would turn proof of work, wasted energy, into actually a useful output, where it would actually run computations for fluid dynamics equations. And these apparently they take a lot of CPU cycles or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting idea. But then he said, it's too niche. Why not just make something that, for the people? Like, why not just do a better Bitcoin, right? Why not? Like, no one did the blockchain CD yet. No one did trustless interest yet. He said, if you're given programmable money, the first program you should do is interest, right? Like, why hadn't anybody done that right in terms of Richard's mind, right? But I'm just saying, I think they'd agree on a lot of stuff, right? I mean, do you think the interview is actually going to happen?
I mean, so I actually covered this, and it's interesting. My take is really that, I mean, Hoskinson's in a little bit of a peculiar situation. He's saying that he doesn't want to go on with Richard because Richard threw mud, and I don't think that Hoskinson's that petty, and I don't think that I mean, I don't think that's the reason why. The reason why is like, I mean, who has more to lose? I mean, Hoskinson has a blockchain that nobody really uses. To be honest, I'm saying like there was just that stablecoin project that said they couldn't develop on it. I mean, it is a little bit of a promise coin. They would argue that in the future they're going to be more decentralized. They're going to be used by everybody. But I'm saying
it, blockchain now. At least for a while it was a coin traded on Ethereum. There's like a ticket symbol for an IOU. So I mean, he's got something at least. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but Richard really had it right. They both they both went down a road, and Richard had it right where he said, okay, we have Ethereum. Ethereum works. Let's build on that. Let's use what they did right, and we'll make it better. And people are familiar with it. And you don't have to go to entirely different code, entirely different wallet, and things like that. It's the better idea. So I'm saying so when those ideas come, when they clash, right, and you have Hoskinson and Richard, exchange ideas. Hoskinson, he's already made it. He has a huge community. Richard is more of the insurgent candidate kind of thing. I mean, he's on his way up. I could see a lot of people in ADA saying like, "F this, let's go over to PulseChain." Especially because Hoskinson, he does act a lot. I'm not trying to bash him too much. I like Hoskinson, but he does act like he's above it. Like we shouldn't care about the price. And I mean, it's easy to say that when you're a billionaire in crypto. It's easy to say that when you made billions of dollars. Like if I made billions of dollars, I'd say the same thing. But like Richard understands what people want, so I think he'd be very appealing, and I think it would cause a lot of people in ADA to cross over. And I think you saw that with a lot of people. So I'm saying, so Hoskinson's like, I have everything to lose, very little to gain. So why should
Who has more to lose? That's a question that's a good insight that I hadn't thought about it that way. Who has more to lose? Who's obviously scared? And it seems to be Hoskinson. I mean, after going through 2017 and that whole crypto bubble, I am very averse to promises, and Cardano is just full of promises. And he seems to be a really smart guy, envisioning this utopian world where like all these things you can see how he's got it all planned out in his head. But I don't see any of that stuff coming to reality for like another decade. And Richard's more focused on, hey, what's happening now?
He's pragmatic.
He's a pragmatist. And that's the thing too. Yeah, you talked about money. I'm in it for the tech, or I'm in it for the money, right? The virtue signaling from people that are already rich, right? That they're not in it for the money anymore. Well, you're just kind of alienating everybody else, because when Richard comes out and says, yo guys, we're here to get rich, like that resonates with so many people that haven't quote unquote made it in crypto yet. And this is really like another shot, especially during this next bull run. I think it could be a huge opportunity for thousands of people to get very, very wealthy if they do it kind of the right way. Staking, taking some profits. Obviously, I'm always a fan of, like, if you're going to take profits one day, it might not be for another year or two, but you're going to want to make sure you do that. But yeah, we're in it for the tech and for the money, but you lose a lot of people when you're only in it for the tech, and you're not trying to, because it's like everyone likes to cover it up, like why we're all here. Like you can be in it for both the tech and the money. I'm in it for mostly the money, but I find the tech very, very interesting. Like I like the tech too, and it is a world-changing revolution. Like it is the best thing since the internet. I believe that technologically. But you can be in it for both, and you don't have to feel bad, right?
Yeah, and that just is a little bit of a testament to show that I think Hoskinson doesn't believe in himself as much as I thought he did, because if you really believe in yourself and you believe that in the future your blockchain, whatever, is gonna be on top, then you should be able to put your ideas out in front of other communities. And that's really why Richard is willing to talk to anyone. He's willing to talk to anyone.
Point. Like the truth will get exposed in the conversations. It'll be very clear. And so ideas compete, right? There's the battlefield of ideas, right? So if he's not confident, like if Hoskinson was as confident as Richard, he would look at this as an opportunity to smash Richard down a couple notches and, shit talk Hex and point out all the flaws in Hex and stuff. But nobody seems to want to do that, or they'll do the tactic of complain about one thing. We address the one thing and then they move the goalposts and they're like, oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
I don't like this other thing now. And it's like, nobody seems to ever have a sound argument, except for Richard's going to nuke the whole product, which seems like obviously that's what we're all gambling on, the fact that that's not going to happen, because in more words or less, like Richard kind of said it, if you read between the lines, but also just why would anybody do that, and but yeah, so I want to get into, we talked behind the scenes about Goldman Sachs. What's your take on, I think you should tell the people what's going on right now in cryptocurrency, because it's bad.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a double-edged sword. You have Goldman Sachs. Let me just look at it first. I talked about this on my stream today at 12. So Goldman Sachs is going to spend tens of millions on discounted crypto investments after FTX implosion report. So it seems like Goldman Sachs wants to do what Sam Bankman-Fried said he was going to do, be the JP Morgan. So I guess it's there's two ways to look at it. So on the one hand, there are a bunch of companies out there that are on the verge of really going under. So you have Voyager. There's like suspicion of a bunch of companies, and I'm sure like one or two of them are really gonna get it. So you have like not Voyager. I'm saying Genesis, which is Digital Currency Group, which is big because that's Grayscale, and that's like there are like a bunch of companies involved there, and like if like imagine like they have to start like liquidating like Grayscale Bitcoin Trust to pay back depositors. They're saying they don't have to, whatever. That possibility. Coinbase is refusing the audit. They're refusing the 1-to-1 proof of reserves thing, which is very suspicious. They're saying it's because of security reasons. So maybe it's Coinbase. There's KuCoin. I don't know if that's big enough. There's a bunch of companies that are the key to 11K in prey, so to speak. So now you have Goldman Sachs coming in and saying that they're going to spend they're willing to spend like tens of millions of dollars to pick them up, and I'm sure they could provide liquidity and help people who want to withdraw and sort of like bring these companies back. So like maybe that could bring in the floor kind of thing, if companies aren't insolvent anymore. But at the same time, it's like you have Goldman Sachs, like crypto's supposed to be like against the Federal Reserve and like the banking system, and it's like they're getting a huge piece of the pie. So
yeah,
they're pumping your bags, but at the same time they're going against like
I am so not surprised. You know what I mean? Like it's like that meme where it's like, wait, this is all just like traditional banking, and then like the astronaut like always has been, and it's like it's ever since Bitcoin kind of sold out to Wall Street. I think there's been a lot more slippery Wall Street type of guys entering the space and using crypto for leverage trading platforms and making money that way. They're bringing the gambling and the casinos, but they're not bringing any innovation. And so Goldman Sachs, a trusted name in the news, has just said to, like you said, they're talking about doing what Sam Bankman-Fried tried to do. They want to be the white knight, quote unquote white knight, right? Like read into that however you want, but they want to buy up all these distressed companies. And you're right. I like the glass half full approach, though. You're looking at it like we might find a bottom here because all these companies are going to get bought out potentially by Goldman. But at the same time, then you've just got even more deeply entrenched traditional guys in what people think is crypto, which is not real crypto, but you know what I mean. Furu Finance streaming with Hex OGs such as Crypto Coffee and Maddie is a testament to the vibrancy of the Hex community. That's right, man. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, and it's you, and there's new guys popping up all the time. It's great to see. It's thriving at the bottom of the bear. You guys that are here, it's going to be rewarded, I think. Yeah. No problem.
Showing us the way.
Yeah. Crypto Artie says, Charles' stream made me so much more bullish knowing I got a vibrant founder named Richard, MF and Hart, because I become more lively in the after hours. I love it. I love it, Artie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Artie. You're the man, bro. I ran into him at in Vegas. Cool dude. Is this part of the FTX contagion? What about the so here's something that I don't really know about. What are the Silvergate Bank rumors?
I heard about this. I'm not but yeah, that isn't Silvergate Bank like that. That was the bank that they were like a tiny bank, and they actually decided to delve into crypto, and they became huge. I think.
Wasn't that the one that? Oh, that was the tiny bank in Wyoming that Sam
Yeah.
Bankman-Fried bought because. Was that it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know there was that. There was that, and there was also this like tiny bank that like I think all these big exchanges basically do crypto through that bank. I don't know.
Oh, okay, yeah, Silver.
If that's going down, that we're down for the prey. We're down for that.
I got you. So that's different. I'm conflating two things here. Sam Bankman-Fried did buy a bank because that's what rich people do when they want to get super rich. You buy a bank so you don't have to go through all the hassle of starting your own. And then Silvergate, yeah, Silvergate's the one that is basically the bank for all the institutional players right now in San Diego. Yeah, I don't know. It might be the bank that provides services to. Maybe it is the same FTX bank. I don't know, guys.
Paul Sachs, main financier for crypto projects based in the USA.
Okay, yeah. So Silvergate Bank's the big one.
But I haven't heard
about the rumors though. So sorry, I got nothing on you. Nothing for you. When do you think the top of the bull market will be? When do I think? That's a good question. I was actually just staking the other day, and I was trying to figure that out because I'm trying to stagger my stakes. Obviously, I have 15 years, right? But a couple of mine came due. When I'm restaking them, I'm like, well, let's try to time it somewhere around 2020, end of 2024, maybe into 2026. Like, because I have no freaking idea, I'm just going to make a ladder. Like, I don't know. My ladder looks so random, to be honest. If I showed you,
same.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, because like I had like all these stakes, and like the price went down a lot, and I could get like way bigger sums of hex on the rungs now. So like it's just, but that's an interesting question for you, is the 4-year cycle. So he's asking when the top's going to be. So everyone's talking about the 4-year cycle, and I actually, that is something I would want to ask you, is that I remember I used to watch the Benjamin Cowan videos. He's a smart guy, but he likes TA, which is I'm not such a fan of, but he talks about the lengthening cycles and diminishing returns, and there were no lengthening cycles. It literally topped on literally on time, like 2 years bull, 2 years bear, 2 years bull. Yeah. And like now I was thinking like interest rates are being raised, so maybe that'll extend it. But at the same time, like the bottom's supposed to be around now, and that's like conveniently coinciding with all this, the FTX debacle, Genesis, and then the Fed is saying is quasi pivoting. It's like they're going to start lowering the rate at which they started raising, at which they raised rates. And interestingly, the top happened when they started lowering the rate at which they pump money into the system. So like they didn't stop the quantitative easing and start rolling off the balance sheet with like the rate hikes, but they started putting less money in the system. That's really when things started to go down. And now they're starting to put less, I guess, stress, less incremental stress on the system. Yes. So what do you think? You think the cycle's
intact? There's a lot of things coinciding here. Yeah, there's a lot. And then on top of that, the new year, January, around the new year season, tends to be a volatile month, right? Like it just tends to be because of, companies are now allocating their money back again for the following year after, 2022 takes over. And if you follow the moon cycles guy, he'll tell you that there's some moon cycles also aligning. All the stars are aligning. But yeah, what's really happening is we're finding a bottom here. And not only is the Federal Reserve lowering the rate at which they increase rates, they're also changing the CPI, the way the CPI number is calculated. Did you hear about this?
I know they've been doing it for years, but I didn't hear about this time.
Well, this is wild because they're going to starting January 2023, the CPI is only going to take 1 year of previous data to average over and come up with their final number. Previously, they were averaging 2 years worth of data. So now in 2023, they're only going to be looking back at 2022. They don't have to include all that 2021 data, because remember how crazy everything was. They were printing money like mad in 2021, and we just get to discount all that data now. So the CPI is going to appear a lot lower, and obviously it always is lower than it. It's always higher than they report it, but it's going to appear a lot lower than it even does today. That's going to give the Federal Reserve an excuse to maybe print some money again, print money a little bit more, and I think we're looking at a Q1 or Q2, maybe a pump, but I would not be convinced that a pump we would see in Q1 or Q2 would be the end. It might end up looking like, do you remember Bitcoin back in 2018, 2019, when Bitcoin went from 3,000 to 14,000 and everyone thought we were back?
Yeah.
And then it retraced all the way back down to 6,000. We might have kind of a fake out, and it's going to be pretty cool. Everyone's going to be talking about, oh, the bull market's back. Yeah. But then we might get like another 80% dip from wherever the next little pump is. So I wouldn't be too convinced. I could see a pump happening, but it's hard for me to see new all-time high kind of pump. You know what I mean? For that, I think we're looking at 2024, 2025, right? And so I guess the original question was about the 4-year cycles. Yeah, I mean, in my head, it makes sense. I want to believe Benjamin Cohen. I want to believe the lengthening cycles, diminishing returns, because that makes sense to me. Like, it makes sense that as Bitcoin becomes a heavier object, it takes more and more money, and the diminishing returns is objectively true. Like, as things grow and become more liquid, they don't pump as hard. So as far as the 4-year cycle, I think Bob Lucas was actually kind of right. Like, lengthening cycles made sense to me, but in reality, it's still just been 4-year cycles. I think Ben was wrong on that one, and I have to admit that now to myself. And so, do you know the exact dates of where those 4-year cycles end?
So the bottom, based on last bear market, would have been December November 9th. And you know what? In based on the longest bear market, it would be December 20th. And I was not a fan of the 4-year cycle. Like, I thought it was the rate hikes. We're definitely gonna get rid of. We're gonna break the cycle. But I'm starting to become more and more of a believer in the 4-year cycle, because people have to realize that it feels like inflation's going to go up forever, but I think it's topped. I think inflation inevitably comes down, because a very smart friend of mine told me this. Is a very hot take. It's that inflation, it's caused by the middle class, because their spending habits fluctuate as the economy fluctuates. The rich people, they always have money to spend on the things that they spend on, right? I mean, their net worth goes from 10 billion to 5 billion, or 500 million to 250 million, but like, they're buying the same meat, they're buying the same vacations, they're buying the same, luxury goods and things like that. But you had the COVID, thing, and there was all the stimulus, and the economy slowed down. People weren't allowed to go outside and spend, and then there was just this excess of money. And inflation isn't caused solely by the printing of money. It's caused by the printing of money plus the velocity of the money, right? The money has to hit the market, right? That's why HEX inflation doesn't lead to devaluation, because it doesn't hit the market. So essentially, it started hitting the market, and it hit the market very hard, because you have this middle class that is now spending money on things that they normally wouldn't be spending on. They're spending it more volume and on more expensive things, so to speak. But eventually the prices go up, and first couple of times their price raises, they could get a salary raise. They could go to their boss and ask for a salary raise to keep up with their spending habits. But there comes a point, especially when the interest rates are raised, where they're not going to get that raise to keep up with the inflation. And when they don't get that raise, they cut their spending. And when they cut their spending, the prices come back down, or they at least stop, skyrocketing. So I think the inflation top's inevitable. And I think it's already been, the CPI has been lower than expected. So I think I'm becoming more, I don't want to say for sure the 4-year cycle, but I'm becoming a bigger and bigger believer in the 4-year cycles. That's fair.
Solid argument. it's interesting about the middle class, on my paychecks and stuff, every year they were adjusted for inflation. And so you just would earn 2% more per year to try to account for inflation. But obviously that wasn't even cutting it, right? Because if real inflation is 10%, you're losing money, right? Unless you're getting a promotion. And I remember thinking to myself, how will I ever reach escape velocity here? If I work super hard for the promotion, and even if I get a 20%, 25% raise, did that 25% raise make up for the last 2 or 3 years of inflation? Because if the last 3 years there was 10% inflation every year, my 25% raise doesn't even get me up to where I should be. You know what I mean? So it's like you're just working so hard just to stay afloat.
Yeah. So the way out would be index funds, right? So you get like S&P 500 will give you like 8-9% a year on I mean, you're normally inflation is 2-3%, right? I mean, it's now it's really high, but I mean, you think you're saying normally the inflation's really 10%?
Just for the past 10 years, maybe ever since 2008, like I think we've just been in a purely quantitative easing environment.
Yeah.
So inflation gets allocated towards wherever people aren't looking. You know what I mean? So there's hidden inflation everywhere.
Yeah. So it goes into financial assets. It doesn't go into like food. Like if you're rich, you get more money. You don't spend that much more on food, right? If you're in the middle class, you spend a little bit more. But so there's like a 2% inflation. The real inflation goes in. It just has to go into like real estate and stocks, and that's why houses are so expensive. But
that's why assets that pay you to own them, assets that are stable and solid, are great. I like crypto because it pumps hard as hell, but real estate's pretty good. Yeah, yield is great. Dividend stocks, solid index fund. You can get a diversified portfolio like is it Wealthfront or Betterments? These things just automatically balance your portfolio for you, so you don't need even a money manager. And then, those things are all pretty good. If you're looking to try to escape the rat race, I mean, I was in all those things too at one point, but now crypto is just so attractive to me. I'm like not even interested in real estate right now, not yet.
Yeah, that's a good way. A good way to take profits is real estate. I think
I like that. I mean, I'll probably be looking at buying a house in the next bull market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's something physical, real. You get to live in it, right? Like, you get a lot of utility out of it. It's good. But thank you, Secret Agent, for the $5 tip. He says finishing returns will happen, but the 4-year cycle will stay too. Diminishing returns doesn't have to mean lengthening cycle. Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yeah, thanks for the stream, bros. Thank you, Secret Agent. Thanks for the $2 tip correcting your typo as well. Appreciate that. So one guy says, why do people want HEX to fail so badly? Because I also want 10K X.
10,000 X.
Oh, 10,000 HEX.
10,000 X. 10,000 X, I think.
Oh, okay. I get it. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's just tribal, man. People want HEX to fail because they don't own any.
Yeah, dude. If I were Max Kaiser, I'd want HEX to fail too. And maybe one day when HEX does a 1 million X, I'll be saying the next big thing's gonna fail.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe I'll be.
People hate it because it's literally their competition.
They hate it because they ain't it.
Well said. I mean, yeah, it's who gets the most triggered, right? The Bitcoin maxis, in my opinion, get the most triggered. That's because HEX was literally designed to be a better store of value. It was originally called Bitcoin HEX.
Yeah.
Because Richard was bold enough, he had the audacity to try to make a better version of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I like that it doesn't have Bitcoin in it though. It's its own thing.
Yeah, thank God he
pitched
that. Hey, Hedron. You got any thoughts on Hedron or?
So, I think the problem I have with Hedron, I think people see there's like a bunch of zeros in front of it, and they're like, HEX had a bunch of zeros in front of it, and it did a 10,000 X. So Hedron's also. At the same time, I think game theory matters. I think those things are important. I think, I don't think it's going to outperform HEX. I mean,
right.
I don't think the game theory. I think the game theory is inferior. But I get free Hedron every day. How could I complain about Hedron?
Yeah.
If it does the 10,000 X, I'll be very, very happy. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not. I do not like the fact that it seems like a lot of people think that I missed HEX let me get in this Hedron because it's early. But I talk about it's called the novelty metric. Like people think new projects are automatically going to outperform old projects, and that's usually not the case. New projects that succeed do better when they're new. Like that's really the way to look at it.
That's
but
good.
If you compare like most new projects from this past cycle to like, let's say Ethereum, they didn't outperform. But let's see. I wouldn't mind. Hedron does a 10,000x and Hex does a 1,000x. I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. They're all going to pump together because their liquidity is bonded. Really, that's the main reason. Half of the Hedron liquidity is tied to Hex. The other half is tied to USDC. So whichever one pumps, it drags the other one up along for the ride to a degree, right? Not 1-for-1, but at about 0.5 ratio, correlation ratio. That's a really good point though. It's not, there's this epidemic of people feeling like they missed out, right? Feeling like, oh, I missed out in Hex because it's 3 years old. And I just compare it back to Bitcoin, right? People will always tell them, there will always be a group of people that tells themselves that they're too late, and then they'll just never get in, right? Because people looking at Bitcoin at $100 said, oh, I'm too late because it used to be a penny, and now it's all the way to $100. They could have never possibly foreseen going to $10,000 or $69,000. But that said, it's not just a guarantee that because it's new, it's going to pump, right? We ignore what's called silent evidence of all the dead bodies that don't get talked about. We focus on the shining stars, the Ethereums, the Bitcoins, the really successful cryptocurrencies, and we ignore the thousands of coins that were all new at one point that failed miserably. But it's interesting too when people talk about, making a coin and it's going to help pump Hex and it's going to be good for Hex, right? We all know that narrative, and I do believe that it's possible to have a coin that helps Hex and that basically or is complementary. But here's all you have to ask to that question, right? If someone's got a new coin out, they're claiming to be good for Hex. It's like, oh yeah, well, what's your primary liquidity paired to? Huh? You got any Hex liquidity? Are you tied to Hex liquidity in any way at all? If you're not, then you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Like, you can clip that out too. I mean, that's the number one question people should be asking is, look at the on-chain data. Your coin claims to be good for Hex. It seems to be unrelated to Hex completely in a lot of cases, right? And that's okay, but just don't lie and claim that you're helping Hex, right? Like, you can like other coins. I'm not mad about that at all. But I don't like the two-faced kind of nature sometimes.
The Hedron guy, Alex, he's a good dude.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
But it's like everyone's getting it for free, and when they get it, they could really sell it whenever they want. So like myself, like if Hedron does a 5,000x and I have my T shares, whatever. I mean, I'm gonna pull, I'm saying, like, and I'm not I don't have that kind of liquidity to, move the price, but I'm sure there are a lot of big whales out there that are thinking like me that could actually, so I think the ceiling's lower. I mean, I hope it does well, but I don't know. I feel like I do think a lot of people are thinking that like they're gonna do better because they're in the newer project, and I think
I mean, everything's gonna pump in a bull market, right? I just try to pick and choose the projects that I think are gonna pump the hardest.
And you get the Hedron. You stake that Hex, you get the Hedron. So
exactly, you might as well start with Hex because at least you can mint free Hedron. But I get it. If you're buying it Hedron new, they're all going to do fine. Like I'm not going to tell you not to buy any of those because they're all self-referencing, right? There's a trifecta. They're all related to each other in some way. And it was really interesting what Alex did. I think by far that's got to be my favorite non-Hex product that's been built so far. Even though there was a little tiny bug where there's no whale bonuses for staking anymore. That's okay because most people weren't whales anyway. Like, only the whales are going to be pissed about that. But in a way, it's almost better for non-whales, right?
Yes, true.
Crypto Artist says, develop tendonitis for Zen. Not too bullish. I will say, I mean, I don't talk about this too much because I think Zen is just going to keep dumping forever.
Yeah.
I will never tell anybody to go buy Zen, but I did claim some. And I remember it was a lot of buttons to click. You know what I mean? It was just new account, gas fee, new account, gas fee. I think I did it like 20, 30 times. I forgot how many times I did it, but
it's like so Zen, like, you're so relaxed and, no worries. Why you have to literally
button mashing. Yeah, it's like a monkey at the computer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun though. I mean, if by some miracle it pumps in 4 or 5 years, then hey, whatever. I've got some
Yeah.
free time.
It's like, yeah, and I think of the essence of that is that Jack really didn't get it, because he's like, we want to make a fair distribution cryptocurrency, and it's like, life's not fair, and
Yeah,
like, and it like, and people, and if the rich people get the same amount as the poor people, then the poor people, when the price any sort of rip, you're just adding sell pressure, bro. Like, that's what you
permanent.
didn't get. The OA is good. It's good when there are rich people that are in your system, because they buy and don't sell. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I tend to agree with you, and I don't think Jack ever claimed that it was programmed to go up in price, or that it was designed to pump. Like, so I don't even think he really cares about the price. And I care a lot about the price, so that's where we defer. That's why I'm not.
I think he seemed like he cared about the price when he was talking about it. He just didn't get it. Like, he doesn't understand that. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
you can't have a fair distribution and good price performance. They're mutually exclusive.
And by the time that I understand diminishing inflation, I get that as a concept. It's not that hard to understand. It's also not that interesting. So like Zen will be very, very hard to mint in 7 or 8 years, but by that time you're going to have a lot of Zen whales that minted very, very early, and then you're going to have, and it might pump at that point. But guess what? The point where Zen might pump in 7 years or whatever, 8 years. By that time, it's not going to be that fairly distributed, because the people that got in early are going to have giant piles of coins.
Yeah,
And so the price, it's ironic, because the only time I can see the price of Zen pumping is the time where the distribution isn't quote unquote fair anymore, because all the bots that got in early, they have the lion's share. But fair is relative. I don't think that it's unfair for some people to have more money than other people at its core. I mean, if you redistributed all the wealth in the world, right? The classic saying is that if you gave an equal dollar amount to everybody and you wait 10 years or 20 years, the rich people would be rich again and the poor people would be poor again. Because it's about your choices, right? It's about what you choose to do with your life, your money, your time, your energy. And yeah, you could say the world's not fair, but you could also take control of your life. You could also choose to act to try to reach that upper 1%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like, you look at like, the example I gave really was like, you look like a good company, a well-run corporation. Is it fair? Like, there are some people there that have better salaries. They have they're treated better because they're smarter. They have more benefits. But at the end of the day, everybody wins, because they work together, each according to their ability. Like, even the people on the lower rungs of the ladder, they get a nice pay, they get good benefits, and it works out for everyone. So
yeah,
I mean, if you didn't have that, if you wanted to, make the corporate, like, if you wanted to make your company where like everyone gets the same amount of money, same amount of benefit, like, it just wouldn't work.
You wouldn't have anything to strive for, right? Like,
It's the same thing with Zen. So Zen is basically, people say in 8 years, like in 8 years, you think after that's 4 bull markets of everything else pumping and Zen getting screwed, like, it's going to have a community that sticks around. I'm betting against it. Most cryptos don't make it. So like, why would I go there? But
I've seen a lot of communities, quote unquote, like communities come and go. And and so far there's nothing remarkable about it to me. But shout out to Eddie Adams. Thank you very much. He says, love the stream, gents. Keep doing what you do. First time I've been able to catch you live in a good bit. Thank you, man. I really appreciate the tip there. We're almost at an hour. I got one last question for you. I want to know, how in the world did you come up with the name calling yourself Furu Finance?
It's a good question. So it's like, you have like all these like Hex accounts. They're like Hex this, Hex that. And everyone really had everything. But like, nobody had Furu. Nobody had Furu in the account. It sounds good, especially.
And now nobody can call you a Furu, because you could be like, yeah, you're right.
Exactly. It's catchy.
Yeah.
It just pops, and we're bringing the integrity back to Furus, right?
Make Furus great again.
Make Furus great again. Exactly.
Thank you for making that your name. And guys, we got one more question in the chat. You can always clip my stuff, and you can always post clips of my stuff. You don't have to worry about asking me, guys. Go ahead, clip that shit up whenever you want. Put it on TikTok because I'm not a TikTok guy. I'm a millennial. I don't have the TikTok gene. But yeah, guys, dude, go ahead. I don't mind. Any final words, guys? Go like and subscribe to Furu Finance right there, and Furu Finance on YouTube, Twitter. I'll put the link in the description below to make it easy for you guys. Any last words from you?
I just want to thank you so much. Like, just so kind. I just reached out to you. I'm like, hey, you want to call on my channel? And you're like, mine or yours? And I'm like, hell yeah, yours. You know, like, yeah. I'd rather go on the one with 25,000 subs and just so spontaneous. And it's really cool being on with you. I really have been watching you for like over a year, and a lot of the things that I espouse come from you.
Thanks,
and
man.
It's like you kind of planted a seed, you know, and now it's, I like to think that it's sprouting. And I think, you know, I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Of course, maybe your channel next time. We'll do it again for sure. All right, boys and girls in the chat, like, subscribe. If you're brand new to crypto, buy my course.
Buy the course.
Patreon.
Buy the course, guys.
One last shill. Consider joining the Patreon if you donate in super chats. I love that, but YouTube takes a big cut of that, and with the Patreon, you also get a ton of benefits, right? Like a private chat room, course coupons. Like you get to help pick and choose what content I make next. And all the money from that Patreon, it's going to go into more IRL giveaway type of videos.
And it supports you, and that makes you keep on giving the content. So
exactly. If you were already going to donate $20 in the live chat, consider the Patreon. Why not? But thanks again, guys.